Chapter 126 of Chainsaw Man gave us what we've all been waiting for. We get the continuation of Chainsaw Man vs. the Falling Devil, and even more important than that, we get a brief appearance from Aki and Power in this chapter too. And to top it all off, we have a mysterious character that shows up to help Denji at the very last second, right at the end of this chapter. So before we get into all that good stuff, make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe, and if you're a big time Chainsaw Man fan, then join my new Discord server and chat with other Chainsaw Man fans about the latest chapters and news or whatever. Make sure to check that link in the description after this video. But with all the housekeeping out of the way, let's get right into this banger of a chapter. So things pick up right from where the last chapter left off. We saw at the end of the previous chapter that the Falling Devil revealed more of her insane abilities by taking out a few devil hunters and levitating like an entire building, and to close things off, Denji pulls up at the last second. Well, here we see Denji and the Falling Devil completely shredding each other apart. It's always awesome to see like two immortal beings going at it, because the fact that they are immortal makes it to where literally anything is open game. Like anything could happen. They can receive like an infinite amount of damage as long as they have blood, and that's what makes Chainsaw Man fights so great. Interestingly enough, the Falling Devil tells Denji that she's not looking to kill anybody anymore. She's actually just looking to send Asa to hell as the main course for the residents of hell. It's still very much up in the air why Asa is so important to the Falling Devil and the other devils in hell, but you gotta assume it has something to do with Yoru, right? Now, taking the prophecy of Nostradamus from a few chapters back into account, it's possible that the horsemen of the apocalypse need to be sent to hell before the prophecy can fully come to fruition. Regardless though, the Falling Devil says that all she needs is Asa and she'll be on her merry way going back to hell after she does this. Now honestly, I think we're going to see this happen. I think we're going to see the Falling Devil send Asa to hell, and I'll go in a little bit more detail about that towards the end of this chapter because Asa does come up. Well, Denji, like most of us, is confused as to what Asa has to do with any of this, but he's like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna kill you then, and funnily enough tells her to keep her hands off his ex-potential girlfriend, confirming that the Denji and Asa ship still has a chance, for those of you that have been waiting for it to happen this entire time. Well, all jokes aside, what happens next literally like gave me goosebumps as I was reading it, because we see the Falling Devil stop Denji with a single finger and mutter the word fall, and in that moment Denji starts levitating like Asa and many others did in the previous chapters, and Denji suddenly starts thinking about Power and Aki the moment before they died. And I talked about this in previous videos. I really did think that Denji would have more of like a flashback moment to his times with Aki and Power, and it would be like a perfect opportunity for him to reflect on everything that's happened since then and how different he is as a person, because like I've said many times, Denji is a lot more low-key, a lot more depressed it seems like. I'm not really sure how to really describe it because it's really hard to read Denji right now in part 2. Well, unfortunately we don't get to see any major flashbacks in this chapter because Denji does a very Denji thing and straight up slices his brain to break himself out of the trance. Now if you guys remember in the previous chapter, Yoru did something similar by slashing her hand to kind of knock Asa back to her senses. Well, Denji takes this to like a whole new extreme by straight up slicing his brain and breaking himself out of this trance to prevent himself from going deeper into his traumatic moments with Aki and Power and floating high up in the sky. I still think there will be a moment where Denji does have more of like full-on flashbacks to all that stuff, because it kind of needs to happen. Like throughout part 2, Denji's kind of been like either in denial or completely ignoring everything that's happened in part 1, and I really feel like that can't last for long, and there has to be a point where Denji just like breaks down or just really lets out what's been weighing him down this whole time. But like I said, that heavy stuff doesn't happen in this chapter. It actually gets very lighthearted and pretty damn funny, because Denji's slicing his brain apart, knocks a few screws loose, and he starts talking about how he wants to eat corn dogs in France. Well, he like literally starts chowing down on the Falling Devil, and she says like one of the funniest things I think I've read in Chainsaw Man, where she says, "Hey, stop, I'm not a corn dog." But she kind of lets it happen because she realizes that, you know, this is probably a good experience for her, learning what it's like to be eaten when you're someone that prepares things for others to eat all the time. So as Denji's consuming her, she like explodes out of his stomach, and I wish I could show a lot of these panels here, but I just recently got a video taken down by YouTube for copyright stuff, so I want to try to keep it as safe as I can here. But I absolutely miss Fujimoto's like gory and really jagged art style, and it's on full display in this chapter, and it's very much welcomed. Well, the Falling Devil explodes exploding out of Denji's stomach pretty much splits him in half, and she then leaves to go find Asa. Well, as Denji's laying down, seemingly down for the count, someone pulls up, and we don't get to see their face in this chapter, and they cut their own hand and let Denji drink some of their blood. Now, I'm sure most of you, like, your first immediate thought would be Yoshida, and that would make perfect sense because this character does seem to be wearing a school uniform, so it more than likely is someone that we've seen before. It is also possible that this is Haruka, the super Chainsaw Man fan, the fake Chainsaw Man from a while back that might have, shown up to help Chainsaw Man because, being a huge fan of him, he'd probably head to any scene where he knows that Chainsaw Man is fighting. Really, it's yet to be seen who this could possibly be, but I do hope that it's like something of a new character that gets introduced to the story, because versus part 1, part 2 is pretty light on the character introductions. It's a lot more intimate, which I don't mind, but it is always nice to have new interesting characters for Fujimoto to implement to help the story get even better, Well, we then cut over to the Falling Devil, who's flying through the air looking for Asa, and she actually ends up finding her right where she was in the previous chapter where she was kind of arguing with Yoru. Now, going back to what the Falling Devil said earlier about her final goal being sending Asa to hell, I do really feel like this is actually going to happen. Like, she's going to grab Asa, Denji's not going to get there in time, and she's going to take her to hell. Now, I do also think that Denji's going to follow her there, and we're going to get part 2 to Denji's trip to hell, because as part 2 has been kind of following the blueprint of part 1 a little bit, seeing as how we got introduced to a primal fear in part 2 here, it might follow a same trajectory as when the Darkness Devil showed up in part 1, where, everyone's in hell and all this chaos happens there. Well, there might be a new form of chaos in hell in part 2, like, instead of the primal fear being the one that's taking everybody out, it's possible that Asa and Denji could be taken to a scene where there's literally hundreds of devils just chowing down on humans, like this really disgusting gory sight, and it might be up to Denji to fight off all these devils or something. It's yet to be seen, but I'm very, very excited the direction that these past couple chapters have been going. It seems like Fujimoto has been putting his foot on the gas and not letting go for these last batch of chapters, and I don't think he's gonna be slowing down anytime soon. So very excited for that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this chapter and where this story has been headed so far. Have an absolutely wonderful night, and I'll see you guys in the next one.